Thank you. So we're very grateful for being able to present here today, especially grateful for CAPES for funding the research and for SEMPRE for funding the travel expenses. So this work was done by me, Lina, which is here also, and Danilo Ramos. And it's practice strategies employed by a piano student during the learning of a musical piece from a lead sheet. Our theoretical foundation is grounded on Meyer's research. He is an educational psychologist who, among other things, has investigated the memory encoding during learning. And in 1986, together with Claire Weinstein, he proposed that thoughts and behaviors, he proposed a definition for learning strategies or practice strategies as thoughts and behaviors that a learner engages in during learning and that are intended to influence their information encoding in memory. So in order to explain this information encoding in memory, in 1996, he proposed the SOI model, which was updated with Whitrock in 2006. So the SOI model has 3 types of memories: sensory memory, working memory, and long-term memory. Sensory memory has a very large capacity, a fast encoding time, and a small retention period, which means that it can hold a lot of information at the same time, but loses it very fastly. Working memory has a small capacity, a fast encoding time, and a medium retention period, which means that it can hold only a few information at a time, but can move it around and manipulate it very fastly. Finally, long-term memory has a very large capacity, a slow encoding time, and a large retention period, which means that it can hold a lot of information together at the same time, but the individual takes some time to access and retrieve this information. So the SOI model tries to explain the learning behavior by explaining the interactions between these 3 kinds of memories. Everything we perceive is available at sensory memory, and once we pay attention to this information, the selection process begins, which brings some information from sensory memory over to working memory, which, remember, has a very small capacity. But once information is there, we are aware of them, and we can start making connections, which is the organization process. So just by knowing that I'm talking, and knowing that we are on a scientific context on a college, we can already begin to understand that what I'm saying is probably something related to science. But all of that, it's not enough. In order to derive complete meaning, we have to bring some information over from long-term memory. So that is the integration process. The integration process then gives meaning to information that is organized and available at working memory, which in turn informs the behaviors we employ. So the SOI model tries to explain learning strategies by explaining the selection, organization, and integration processes. Sue Nielsen was the first author to bring some of this research over to music psychology. So in 1999, she investigated how 2 organ players learned a song for the first time and tried to classify their strategies. What she found was that they could be divided into selection, organization, and integration strategies, but that they could also be further classified into more specifically musical subcategories. So, for instance, a selection strategy might more specifically try to select a working area or a region of the music where the student might want to focus on. An organization strategy might try to join parts in a whole, for instance, connecting small phrases into a larger one, or might try to classify the learning material. For example, understanding if a problem is related to memory or maybe something of an automatization of a motor sequence, and so on. Integration strategies might try to relate visual, kinesthetic, or auditory information to the music execution, or they might try to compare similar phrases regarding their similarities and differences in order to facilitate their learning. So just by understanding and beginning to classify the subcategories related to musical learning, we can already start to understand those processes behind musical learning. But it's important to acknowledge, however, that all of the early research done by Nielsen was done over scores. Even when she investigated in 2015 how a jazz musician might learn, she did so over a jazz transcription and over a task of learning by ear, which is very different than learning from lead sheets, which according to Jeffrey Noyce and Schaffing, is the main way jazz musicians usually learn. So there are some differences between these 2 kinds of learning tasks. Scores have all notes written down for both hands in the case of the piano, and also they provide symbols for articulation, dynamics, and expression. While lead sheets only have the melody notes and the chord symbols, which have to be interpreted, and also leave out a lot of information, such as rhythm, articulation, and etc. So from our previous case study, this is an example of a lead sheet, and we have the melody notes, which are most likely correct, but we should check them. We have the rhythm for this melody, which is most likely simplified in some way or another at some places. We have the chord symbols, which are correct, but we have to choose how we're going to play them on both hands, and also integrate them with the samba rhythm, which has to be added. Oops, sorry. So our participant had to integrate all of this information into one unified and cohesive performance. And that was the end result we're going to hear just right now. All right, so we can see that a lot of information had to be added. Here we have the full transcription for this excerpt we just heard. So she had to add bass notes, change the rhythm of the melody, correct some notes on the melody, and also integrate the rhythm and the chords. We can hear it again now, helped by the transcription of the excerpt. So we can see a lot of decisions had to be made. And this problem solving might require the use of specific practice strategies related to lead sheet learning. So the purpose of this study was to investigate which are the practice strategies employed by piano students during the lead sheet learning of a musical piece. The method we employed then was a case study which took only one participant in order to more fully understand which are the practice strategies he employed and why he chose to employ them. So our participant was a graduate student with 15 years of experience practicing the piano, and he provided us a list of 5 songs that he had never played before and that he would normally study on his musical practice. We evaluated them for variability of challenges, the length of the music, and the availability of the lead sheet. And after applying those criteria, we chose Avião by Djavan, which is a samba song that has a very syncopated melody and also a complex rhythm. For the procedure, our participant did a lead sheet learning over 2 practice sessions that lasted for 20 and 30 minutes respectively, and he also provided concurrent thought verbalizations following the guidelines provided by Erickson and Simon in 1993. For our data analysis, we employed the ECAP protocol, which is the Qualitative Identification of Musical Practice Strategies protocol. It was developed over previous pilot work and tries to triangulate data from thought verbalizations, practice behavior, and also problem-solving goals. So, thought verbalizations might be, for instance, I will start from this chord. A practice behavior, or the segments, are the points where the participant starts and ends his executions. So you can see here on the horizontal x-axis, the bars of the music. And on the vertical y-axis, we can see the segments. So he's starting from the 6th bar, right on the end of it, and playing up to the 9th bar, around there. So we can see where he's starting, where he's stopping, the repetitions, and also behaviors, such as where he's playing the melody, where he's playing only the harmony, and everything at the same time, and also other kinds of behaviors that are not present here, such as verbalizations and listenings to the music. Finally, we also take into account problem-solving goals. We transcribe all of them for the practice sessions, and an example for a short-term problem-solving goal might be reading the melody for the first 2 bars. While an example for a medium-term problem-solving goal might be learning the harmony for the whole A section. So by triangulating between these 3 kinds of data from the ECAP protocol, we can start to understand and list practice strategies. The ECAP protocol is available at Open Science Framework, and the link provided here is also provided at our summary. Now we're going to present the results, and for the first practice session, we identified 15 strategies. While on the second one, we identified 14 strategies, and after adding both of them up, we ended up with 7 duplicates, which were excluded. Then the 22 remaining strategies were classified. For the classification, we employed the SOI model categories proposed by Meyer and Wittrock in 2006, and also the preliminary scheme subcategories specifically related to music proposed by Nielsen in 1999. It's important to acknowledge that there are other frameworks for understanding and classifying practice strategies, but because our data was very reliant and very connected to the problem-solving processes, and also more specifically, we are more specifically interested in cognitive problem-solving strategies. We chose this specific framework because it seemed to fit the data better. So our 22 strategies were easily divided between selection, organization, and integration. And Nielsen subcategories accounted for most of those strategies, but not all of them. So we proposed 3 new ones: strategies for correcting the lead sheet, strategies for assigning focus throughout the practice session, and strategies for associating manipulated information not available in the lead sheet. Of those 3, 2 were specifically related to lead sheet learning, and also 5 of the 22 strategies were specifically related to lead sheet learning. Because of time constraints, we're going to focus on those 5. So in order to correct the specific information he was looking for, he employed the listen-execute strategy, which starts the playback of a recording of the music, pauses on the information he's looking for, and then tries to imitate it on the instrument in order to correct it. An alternative strategy he employed was simultaneous listening, where he starts the playback, and at the same time, while the playback is running, he tries to imitate it on the instrument. Other strategies try to more specifically deal with harmonizing chords over specific melody notes. So when he was facing difficulties, he employed the mapping limitation strategy, which is an execution with decreased tempo, while he focuses on the execution difficulties and tries to build up a mental list of the challenges he's facing. After he identifies and lists those specific problems, he then tries to employ other strategies to solve them. Another strategy is the iterative exploration strategy. So here he tries to create multiple solutions to harmonization, never taking any one approach as a final version. So he always tried to come up with better and improved iterations of a specific bar or a specific chord in order to improve his arrangement. Finally, harmonizing work is a strategy where he employs small repetitions of specific chords, focusing on specific intervals to be added or omitted that may or may not be present at the chord symbol, and he does that in order to search for a sound that he approves, that he thinks will fit better with the arrangement he's creating. So for the conclusion, it seems that lead sheet learning of a musical piece might require the use of specific practice strategies, but in order to fully evaluate that, future research might change the song, the participants, the levels of expertise investigated, and also the instrument played, as we investigated specifically the piano. We think that teachers and students might benefit from consciously knowing usual solutions to specific problems related to lead sheet learning and also other kinds of learning tasks. We are very grateful for the attention and the opportunity to be presenting here at ESCOM 12, which we very much admire, and especially for the organizing committee for allowing us to be present here today. We're very grateful, and those are the references used on this specific presentation. I'm going to give you some time to read it. We have 2 slides. Okay. Thank you.